Welcome to ESB Outspoken with Angela and Richard Shelp.
Well, today we've got a wonderful guest by the name of Jeremy Park. Jeremy is the CEO of cityCURRENT. cityCURRENT is an organization whose mission is to power the good. Yes. And that partnership involves 120 different organizations, which include some of the biggest organizations in the world, people like FedEx, AutoZone, etc. And his organization puts on hundreds of events in the community each year. Not only is Jeremy an outstanding CEO and philanthropist, but he is a great speaker, MC, and truly a force for good.
Yes,
Jeremy Park, everybody.
And we are so excited to have Jeremy here today. He is going to talk to us about how he took his large in-person event and pivoted to online and has more to go in the future. So Jeremy, go ahead and just kind of share some of your insights and why you went to virtual and how you made it work.
Obviously, with everything going on with COVID-19, we had to shift pretty fast. Luckily on our end, from a media standpoint, we do a lot of media. We have TV shows and radio shows and podcasts. And so we already were familiar with the technology like Zoom. So we at least had that kind of on the back end to be able to roll over pretty fast. But we made the move pretty fast to go and move everything to virtual. And when you look at an event like a signature breakfast series, where you have a lot of moving parts, where you have local presentation elements, announcements, invocation, videos, leadership, all sorts of different activities, and then networking and a national guest speaker, and then wanting to do Q&A, there's a lot of moving parts. And so for us, the workshops, the seminars, some of those were pretty easy to move over into Zoom webinars or Zoom meetings. The breakfast events, the larger gatherings were a little trickier, but that's where obviously, you know, working with you and your team and the speakers and trying different things, we've come up with a process that works pretty well so that at the end of the day, you can both have the elements and the experiences that you need at a local level while bringing in a national guest speaker and doing some really creative things. And the thing that I really look at with these online events, virtual events, is that you have to reshape how you're looking at them. And it gives, in our instance, it gives us the opportunity to really kind of blow up the in-person and say, okay, how do we take the core components, but really think outside and say, okay, now we're not limited. We can do whatever we want. We can go and record a lot of things wherever they are in the world. We can have access to global thought leaders and get them right there in their own living room. We can do Q&A sessions. We can do so many things creatively, and we can integrate in some really unique elements using things that we pre-record. And so now we're not limited by having to necessarily be there in person and coordinating all those schedules. Now we can pre-record some of the elements, play them as a video, tie all these nice elements together, and in the end, do something special that we weren't able to do before.
Well, I got to tell you, what you've done and the process as you're describing it, it's so incredible to think of all the things that you had to go through in your head in formulating all this. What do you think was the biggest challenge in making this work?
I think there's so many different platforms that individuals are using, organizations are using, people are used to using. You have Teams, Zoom, you have Skype. I mean, there's all these different, and there's a lot of new platforms obviously coming out. So one, understanding and becoming a proficient professional, whatever you want to call it, you know, within the different models and platforms, that's the first one. Two is just then selecting which one you're going to use. And they all have some great features, but also some limitations. And I think that's where trying to figure out what is your ultimate goal. And I think, you know, any event, what you're trying to do is provide a memorable experience, right? You're providing content, but you're providing an experience that people are going to think well of. And the same has to be said with an online experience as well. And so looking at the end goal of what you're trying to accomplish and then trying to figure out which platform. For us, Zoom was the best option because we were the most proficient at it. We knew how to customize it and make it work. You can do some really cool things with it. That being said, Zoom has limitations. So you have Zoom webinars, and Zoom webinars give you the ability to scale, you know, and invite thousands, even 10,000, but you're limited to raising a hand, chat feature. You have closed down session, but you can't do the networking. You can't do the breakout rooms. And that's where for us, going back to a local event providing networking opportunities, we needed to be able to do some networking and some breakout rooms. So that's where we actually had to combine 2 different formats to then get one experience with an event. So we have Zoom meetings, which allows us to do the breakout rooms, and then Zoom webinars, which allow us to really give the guest speaker all the options that they need. So the first one we did a Zoom webinar, or we did a Zoom meeting and then a webinar. Now we're trying, and we're in the same boat like everybody. We're trying new things and innovating and pivoting ourselves all the time. But now we're going to do a Zoom webinar and then a meeting, and then do the breakout session after the speaker does some Q&A. So we're like every organization trying to continually evolve and get feedback from our attendees and our guests and our partners and say, how can we make this thing better?
Jeremy, I would love to know, tell me about the feedback you got from the attendees.
Yeah.
So our first one in terms of the big event was Alex Benayan, who did an amazing job, author of The Third Door. Really great person to do a virtual event with because he's young, he's charismatic, he's a great storyteller, and he's also too very thoughtful with the way he answers his questions. So in other words, as people were asking him questions, he wasn't just giving you the automatic kind of pitched version. He was really thinking about it and coming up with a very thoughtful response. And I think that endeared him to the audience and he was calling people by their first name, saying, "Hey, is that Angela? Is that Richard asking that question? Hey, good to see you." So he did a great job of engaging. And I think for speakers now, there is an art form to learning how to engage people online. There's also an art form to being a lot more charismatic, where they can see you and you're more present, and you have to be more engaged, because now people can tune out pretty fast. They can just literally turn off their computer or walk out and go somewhere else. So as a speaker, you have to be that much more enthusiastic and engaging and really pushing your energy out. So Alex did all that. We got amazing feedback. And then, the question is, okay, well, how can we make it better? Because I think for anyone in the event world, it's a couple of things to understand. One is Zoom fatigue, online events, that is real. People are going through it. What I have seen, though, is that if you can do things that are creative, that are innovative, and give people access to speakers that they would normally not be able to access, or things that are going to really improve their life or career, they will tune in. It's just now there is more competition, and you have to be more intentional. They will tune out for things that they don't feel are value. But if you can provide the value, you will get them, and you will get them in droves. So one is being very laser focused on value. What are you trying to achieve? Doing something a little different. And then two is just understanding, how you can take that, get the feedback to make them better, by whether it's trying different platforms, trying different engagement with the breakout rooms, being intentional to assign room hosts so that you can really engage them. So I think there's a lot of things that you can do to kind of tie in. But the second piece of that is this is gonna remain the normal. When you look at events even going back in person, there's always going to have to be now a hybrid component. So as an event host, as a coordinator, as a facilitator, you now have to be thinking digital first or digital always in terms of an option now for your audiences. So I think this is it's a great time to sharpen the saw. It's a great time to learn these skill sets, because this is only going to continue moving forward. Who knows when things will normalize with COVID-19, but I would argue that even when things do normalize, whatever that looks like, there is now always going to be the expectation of an online element.
I think so too,
absolutely.
and like you said, I think it allows you to reach a group of people that you might not have gotten to before. I mean, you're now not limited to the size. I mean, cityCURRENT has grown so much that you're having to close it down, and you're full. Well, now you've got overflow. People can watch online, so you can have a smaller, even when we go back and we're doing a hybrid and you have a smaller in-person audience, you'll have the people online. So you can continue to grow your audience by having that online presence.
Well, and Jeremy, I love all the things that you're thinking about as you're approaching this in the future. Somebody recently told me that when you're doing a virtual event, you need to think of them not as an audience as a whole, but you have to think of each individual separately when you're approaching a virtual event, as if you're entertaining that one person. What about your approach going forward would kind of be consistent with that idea?
Let me jump back to a point Angela is making, because I think when you you can look at this as one, I'm going to bang my head against a wall and pray that all this goes away. Or you can say, hey, this really is not only what we're dealing with, but this is the future. Let me embrace this and create something new and innovative, right? Which led us to launch a whole new division called Growth Current. So when you look at it, we've launched a whole new, e-learning online personal development platform that, to your point, Angela, we realize now that the geographical boundaries now are now taken away. Now anyone can tap into this, so we can tap into a network globally to think different about how we host events and give them access to these speakers, these experiences, and the things that we're doing through cityCURRENT, but now launching Growth Current. So, literally this has led to a whole new division and us thinking global and not necessarily local, taking the local idea, but making it global. To your point, Richard, yes. I think I look at this really as now we're in the media business. And actually this is perfect for us because, a big part of my career was TV and radio, and that's what we do today. But I look at this just like TV, where you've got to engage people in their homes. You've got to keep them entertained, and you have to make it personal. It has to be personal. People want to know what's in it for me. And it goes back to that memorable experience. If there's not something in it for them to grow, then you're going to lose them pretty fast. So for us, we are very intentional, even when you're beginning an event, having polls, having questions. Where are you? What are you doing? What are you looking forward to? Like really engaging them one-on-one. Hey, that's a great, and calling them out by name, because it's easy to get caught in the trap of producing the videos and making it a show and not necessarily making it personal. And when you're going to this, and like I said, people's time is valuable, but also people have a lot of competition for their time. You've got to make it personal. You've got to make it valuable. And you also kind of have to tell people what they're going to learn. I think people sometimes aren't necessarily able to connect all the dots. So we, just like a speaker, when you can bring them that aha moment and say, here's what you're going to learn. Like, here's the takeaway. Here's the lesson. That's going to make it even more valuable for them, because they're going to be like, okay, that's what I learned. That's why I'm sticking with this. I'm looking forward to learning that lesson. So all of those little details in the end get you where you need to go with your events.
Super.
And I know
love that.
they're going to want to come back over and over again. The first one was such a huge success. I can't wait to see the next one. Well, that is awesome.
That's awesome.
And can't tell you how much we appreciate this, Jeremy. I know our audience is excited to listen to kind of what you've done and how you've made it successful and how you're going to continue on. And just like you, I think everybody needs to embrace this and find a way that they can take it forward and make it work for them going in the future.
And as somebody who was a part of that first cityCURRENT breakfast, it was outstanding.
It was so good.
It was a fabulous event. It accomplished goals, not only for me personally, but I think it accomplished goals for everybody. So your goal of being personable and making it for each person, you accomplished it in that first event.
Definitely.
So we appreciate that too,
fantastic.
Jeremy. Great job. And
we look forward to the next one.
we sure do.
Yes.
And everybody, you be outspoken.